Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are untangling that incredibly confusing web of digital terminology to figure out what it all actually means for businesses today. We're going to trace the path right from the birth of the transistor all the way into the complex, high-stakes boardrooms we see today. If you have ever felt totally overwhelmed by all those corporate buzzwords surrounding digital initiatives, well, you're in the right place. By the end of this, you are going to have a crystal clear framework for what a digital strategy actually is, and more importantly, how to execute it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the digital technology era, then move on to defining true digital strategy, contrast that strategy with digital transformation, and finally look at 5 key questions for transformation. Let's dive in.
Section 1. The digital technology era.
It is completely fascinating to trace our transition from these clunky mechanical and analog systems into the modern world. It all really kicks off back in 1947 with the invention of the transistor. That one event is widely credited as the dawn of the digital era. Moving into the late 1950s through the 70s, this digital revolution really gained serious momentum as governments all over the world began adopting computers. And by the 1970s, personal computers were actually entering people's households, making digital record-keeping the absolute norm. This era dramatically changed human communication, paved the way for the information age, and honestly, it's still opening up new frontiers today, from robots replacing human labor in manufacturing to using genetic information for highly personalized medical treatments.
But hey, before we start throwing around corporate buzzwords, what actually is digital technology at its scientific core? Simply put, it's technology where information is represented in digital form. That just means zeros and ones. That binary code is the foundation powering every single electronic tool, system, and device that generates, stores, or processes data. So, whether we're talking about online games, multimedia content, social media networks, or just that mobile phone sitting in your pocket, it all fundamentally boils down to those zeros and ones.
Moving right along to Section 2, defining true digital strategy.
Inside modern organizations, we run into this classic blind man and the elephant scenario all the time. Different departments have completely conflicting ideas of what constitutes a digital strategy. Look at this. A marketing exec looks at it and just sees social media and web channels. But the IT department? They look at the exact same strategy and see cloud computing. Operations sees data analytics, R&D sees online products, and finance is laser-focused on online revenue channels. It's wild. Every single department views the strategy solely through the lens of their own operational silo.
So a digital strategy, which you might sometimes hear called a digital media strategy, is fundamentally a game plan for maximizing the business benefits of your data assets and tech initiatives. But to actually achieve that, you absolutely must break down those departmental silos we just looked at. A successful strategy requires a unified cross-functional team. We're talking executive leadership, marketing, and IT all working together. You've got to dissolve those barriers between your IT leaders and your customer-facing departments to make sure you deliver one consistent, seamless digital experience for your customers. And this brings up a really stark contrast between the old way of doing things and the new. Traditional information technology strategies are notoriously rigid. They focus on these massive, long-term roadmaps and budget forecasts that extend years into the unknown future. A true digital strategy, though, it relies entirely on agility. It utilizes short-term, month-to-month roadmaps that are strictly tied to actionable items and measurable business goals. Your digital strategy should place an intense focus on where your company's value chain is vulnerable to disruption, finding exactly where a digital reboot could make things stronger and a lot more economically viable. Once your short-term strategy targets those vulnerable areas in your value chain, you've got to execute. And executing means answering 3 critical service delivery challenges. Step 1, you must identify exactly which services should be handled in-house by your own teams. Step 2, determine which services are better off being outsourced to a specialized third-party provider. And step 3, and this one is super important, you have to figure out which of those services require heavy customization in order to actually be effective for your specific business model.
Which brings us to Section 3, Strategy versus Digital Transformation.
It is incredibly common to hear people use digital strategy and digital transformation completely interchangeably, but they differ massively in scope. Strategy focuses purely on technology. It uses tech to create the capabilities a company needs to become a digital business, but it does not focus on culture. Transformation, on the other hand, that's the whole shebang. It is a holistic, organization-wide overhaul.
It drives change across the customer experience, operational processes, and business models, and it absolutely requires coordination and fundamental business culture changes. Laying down your digital strategy is really just one key component of that broader transformation process, making sure the technology actually supports your overarching business objectives.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 4, 5 questions for transformation.
Let's actually put all this into practice. I want you to ask yourself these exact questions about your own operations right now. How could digital technology improve the way you add value to the businesses you're already in? Could it entirely change who your target customer is? Does it fundamentally affect the value proposition you're offering to them? And crucially, how can this technology enhance the specific enterprise capabilities that differentiate you from your competitors? These questions are a game changer because they force you to look past the buzzwords and pinpoint exactly where digital tools intersect with your unique competitive advantage.
And I'm going to leave you with this ultimate, really provocative question. This is the fifth and most critical question for any transformation effort. Does digital technology change the actual businesses you should be in? Let that sink in for a second. As the information age accelerates, simply digitizing your old, current processes might just not be enough anymore. You have to be willing to ask if technology has entirely shifted the landscape of your industry. It's a heavy question, for sure, but answering it honestly is the absolute key to the very survival and future prosperity of your organization.
And explore the true foundation of digital transformation. It is so incredibly easy to get swept up in the hype of the newest AI tool or automation platform. Everybody's talking about it, right? But there is a massive paradox at the heart of this whole digital rush. We're seeing companies buy the technology first and then trying to figure out what to actually do with it later. Today, we're going to completely untangle this.
So before you go out and buy that expensive new software, you really have to stop and ask yourself a pretty blunt question. Does it actually give you a competitive edge? Now, to some companies, these questions will have incredibly obvious answers, especially those that have already experienced brutal disruption or fierce competition from new, agile digital players. A real competitive advantage is what allows you to outperform rivals and generate superior margins. If your shiny new digital tool isn't helping you do things faster, more efficiently, or for less money than the guy next door, well, it might not be an advantage at all.
The absolute essential foundation of any successful strategy is beginning with a crystal clear understanding of your company's core purpose. By starting with purpose first, you can avoid wasting so much time and resources on implementing technology that simply doesn't enable new competitive advantages. Your goal shouldn't be to just digitize for the sake of digitizing. The real intention here is to identify exactly how digital changes what you do and how it improves the way you add value. Strategy has to dictate the tools every single time.
To really understand why this is so critical right now, we have to zoom out and look at the broader landscape. According to Basu's research from 2021, we are firmly in the present Industry 4.0 era. In this environment, almost all large business entities across basically all industry sectors have embarked upon this journey of digital transformation. They haven't just updated their systems, they have reinforced, further automated, and quite literally weaponized their operating and financial policies, processes, and ICT systems. They're using these technologies to fiercely stay ahead of, or at least stay relevant with competitive advantages. And it's not just the big players anymore. Micro, small, and medium entities are gradually joining them in this exact same high-stakes journey.
Now, a massive driver helping these entities along this journey is the startup ecosystem. Many startups are providing digital solutions built with what Basu playfully calls innovative applications. I love that term. It's this perfect blend of innovation and invention. These startups are utilizing 8 deep digital technologies to deliver these unique solutions. But to really grasp how these technologies are completely altering the business landscape, we need to break down the 2 main types of these innovative solutions.
The source material categorizes these digital solutions into 2 very distinct natures. We have disruptive on one side and bizruptive on the other. Disruptive innovations are exactly what they sound like, destructively disruptive solutions that completely destroy old conventional models. On the flip side, bizruptive solutions are unique, strategy-driven innovations that focus on building dynamic, new business networks. Let's actually explore what each of these looks like out in the real world.
Okay, let's look closely at disruptive solutions first. The defining characteristic here is that they have either entirely destroyed certain conventional operations for manufacturing, marketing, and supply chain, or they've completely replaced traditional products. How? By combining many different functional capabilities into one single device. It doesn't just improve the old way of doing things, it obliterates the need for it entirely.
Just look at the real-world casualties of this process. In the industrial space, robotic process automation has brought in a totally new era of man-machine collaboration, heavily disrupting conventional manufacturing operations and legacy supply chains. And in our everyday lives, smartphones have almost completely killed traditional amateur cameras and torches. Just gone. Entire massively profitable industries were effectively finished in a matter of years because they were replaced by a single, multifunctional digital device. That is disruptive tech in action.
Then we have the bizreptive solutions. Rather than just destroying old products, these are unique, strategy-driven innovations designed specifically for networking. We're talking P2P, B2C, and B2B networking. The core goal here is creating incredibly time and cost-efficient processes for service deliveries. They optimize for safety, speed, and quality. It's all about connecting the dots and improving the process in ways that just weren't possible before.
So, with all of these massive disruptive and bizruptive changes constantly happening around us, it brings us right back to our core paradox. How do we actually use these digital changes to form the foundation of our strategy? We've talked a whole lot about the technology, but to deploy it correctly, we have to return to the absolute basics. Think about it for a second. What actually is a strategy in this context?
Our source material provides a highly precise definition that beautifully cuts through all the corporate jargon. Quote, "A strategy is an integrated set of choices for actions which positions a firm in an industry so as to generate superior financial returns over the long run." Let me repeat that, because every single word matters here. It is an integrated set of choices designed to position you for superior financial returns over the long run. It is a cohesive plan, absolutely not just a series of isolated IT purchases.
To really build our understanding, let's look at how these specific pieces fit together. Here, the integrated set of choices denotes plans for activities that are to be initiated directly from your internal environment. It means looking inward at what makes your company tick. Meanwhile, over the long run signifies the dynamics of competitive advantages required for sustainable growth and prosperity. You aren't just looking for a quick, flashy digital win for the quarter. You're building an engine for sustainable prosperity. Which brings us to a really crucial takeaway. You can't just copy what everyone else is doing. You have to refine your understanding from broad digital industry trends into specific values that will actually form the foundation of your unique strategy. Broad trends like AI or cloud computing only matter if they are carefully refined into specific capabilities that your company needs to become a true digital business.
At this stage, we really shouldn't forget the axiomatic advice of Sun Tzu, which the source text insists every strategist must always remember. Strategy without tactics is a slow path to uncertain success. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. It is incredibly fascinating how these words of advice are equally apt and relevant even today after 26 centuries. Implementing random software or blindly adopting the latest app, those are just tactics. Without an integrated strategic choice guiding them, they are nothing but expensive noise before defeat.
And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. I want you to look at the digital tools your company uses every single day and ask yourself honestly, are your technology implementations actually enabling a true, long-term competitive advantage? Or are you just paying for expensive noise?
We're unpacking something that is literally reshaping the entire business world. We're talking about digital transformation. But, not just as a trendy buzzword. We are looking at how organizations are actually using it to gain a massive competitive advantage. So if you've ever wondered how legacy companies manage to stay ahead, or how entirely new players can just disrupt a market overnight, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly do you outmaneuver competitors, especially if you're stuck operating in a traditional legacy market where the rules have been set for decades? Well, the ultimate prize here isn't just some temporary bump in sales. No, it's about achieving a sustainable competitive advantage. It's about taking your organization on this transformation journey, totally embracing digital tech to find what experts call a blue ocean. Basically, an entirely new market space where the competition is practically irrelevant because you've created something totally unique. And why does this matter? Because whether you're a scrappy startup or a century-old institution, finding that blue ocean is absolutely crucial for your long-term growth and prosperity.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. Escaping the red ocean. 2. The power of invention. 3. 4 pillars of strategy. 4. Bottom-up strategy emergence. And 5. Mastering the PDP loop. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. Escaping the red ocean. Creating a new market space. So when an organization kicks off its transformation, the goal is usually to meet latent customer demands. Those needs they might not even realize they have yet. To pull this off, researchers talk about offering what they call trans-created solutions. Let me translate that academic jargon for a second. Actually, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically the creation of a new, highly versatile product or business model that completely transforms a traditional one running on legacy systems. You stop fighting in that bloody, hyper-competitive red ocean, and you start operating in a strategically created blue ocean right inside your traditional sector. You're not just updating an old process, you're literally changing the game.
Section 2. The power of innovation. Strategy meets technology.
To understand how strategy actually merges with technology to make this happen, we have to look at this really cool concept introduced by researcher Paritosh Basu in 2021. The term is invention. Sounds kind of like a mashup, right? Well, because it is. Invention is the combination of three distinct tasks: innovation, invention, and creation. But these aren't just happening randomly. They're driven by distinctively formulated strategies and the clever application of digital technologies. And here's the most important takeaway. The objective of invention isn't just boosting the company's monetary profit. It's about generating and sharing value holistically. That includes creating value for time, improving quality, using greener technology, and minimizing risks. It's this comprehensive approach that lets companies enjoy those sweet first-mover advantages.
Section 3. 4 pillars of strategy. Structuring the approach.
Now, to actually structure this approach, we turn to the research of Bharadwaj and colleagues. They identified 4 major groups, which we can basically think of as the 4 pillars of digital strategy. We've got scope, scale, agility, and sources of value creation. If your business wants to leverage digital technologies to create value by integrating your operating processes, these are the influencing factors you absolutely have to map out. You need to clearly define the scope of your transformation, the scale you'll be operating at, how agile your systems are going to be, and exactly where your value is coming from. If even one of these pillars is weak, the whole strategy is going to struggle to hold up.
Section 4. Bottom-up strategy emergence. The reality of implementation.
Now, what's really interesting about this, we usually picture strategy as this grand plan handed down from the CEO's office, right? But here is a huge twist from the seminal work of Chainias and Hess. Their research concluded that holistic digital transformation doesn't actually start in the boardroom. It turns out these strategies are predominantly shaped by a diversity of emergent activities coming from separate organizational subcommunities through a bottom-up process. Basically, the people on the ground, the ones interacting with the tech and the customers every single day, they are the ones organically generating the real strategic shifts. Think of it as an activity-based process. A triggering event kicks things off, sure, leading to strategy initiation. But then you have this emergent strategy phase bubbling up. This is where those sub-communities start creating emergent candidates for the new strategy. Top management's job is actually to play catch-up. They seek to accomplish the subsequent alignment of these pre-existing bottom-up strategies with their own overarching intentions. Management's real role is coordinating the brilliance that's already happening at the ground level.
Section 5. Mastering the PDP loop, from data to revenue.
All right, we've talked a lot of theory. Let's bring it down to a tangible execution model. Before any of the digital magic can happen, you have to start with that triggering event we just talked about. The absolute crucial starting point for this entire strategy technology interplay is identifying the emergent needs, problems, and risks of your customers, specifically the ones that persist as latent demands in the ecosystem. It's about finding that invisible gap. That identification process is exactly what prompts the opportunity for an entirely new business and revenue model.
Let's move on and see how this builds into the PDP loop, which stands for physical, digital, physical. It's a clean 4-step process. Step 1 happens at the physical marketplace, where the data is actually generated. Step 2 is the digital phase, where cognitive tools process all that data. Step 3 brings in human leadership, specifically CXO inference. And finally, Step 4 brings it all back to the physical marketplace for implementation. Let's break down exactly what happens in each of these steps.
To really visualize Step 1, let's look at a quick micro case study in banking. A bank generates massive, highly granular loads of data every single day at the physical marketplace. I mean, we're talking about a staggering scale, billions of transactions with millions of customers. Once it's captured, this physical data can be collated in incredibly detailed ways. The types of transactions, time durations, how often errors get repeated, geographical regions, language, age groups, gender, financial range values, and the exact time of day. The sheer mountain of data is literally the raw material for transformation. But as we know, raw data just sitting there doesn't do much. That's step 2. We have to move rapidly from the physical raw data to digital processing. This is where cognitive tools, straight from the stables of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data analytics, step in. These powerful digital technologies process those massive data sets to uncover hidden trends, patterns, and correlations that a human analyst would literally never catch. This processed info is the bridge between what is happening and what it all actually means.
And this brilliantly illustrates steps 3 and 4. Once those cognitive tools crunch the numbers, Chief Experience Officers, or CXOs, step into the loop. They look at this processed information and draw deep inferences to understand what business has been done and, more importantly, what can be done. This triggers innovative thoughts to craft entirely new digital business designs, which are then taken straight back to the physical marketplace for implementation and revenue generation. Boom, the loop is complete.
Which leaves us with the absolute most important question. Look at your own organization. You are generating physical data right now. If you applied this PDP loop, what latent demands could your data uncover? The blue ocean is out there. You just have to use the right digital strategy to navigate to it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.